What's going on? Here in the Beat Sessions. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We appreciate you checking out the channel. Thank you for your support. Let's talk about M83 and this new album, Fantasy, that was released on March 17th. This is the 9th studio album for the French band and their follow-up to 2019's Digital Shades Volume 2, Volume 1 being released back in 2007. And by band, of course, I mean Anthony Gonzalez. This has basically been his solo outfit now for about 15 years. Started off as a duo with the first two records. And then back in 2008, we got Saturdays Equal Youth. Great project there. But I think most people became familiar with this outfit with Hurry Up We're Dreaming, big track Midnight City. I remember that song was just everywhere back in 2011. This is a band that I've listened to on and off over the years, and I like them. But I'm struggling with this record. And I think the two big things are the sprawling effort that this thing is. And I get it. It's what this cat is all about, in my opinion. I feel like, going stylistically with all the synths, oftentimes kind of spacey and sci-fi, the big grandiose sprawling tracks, soundscapes, so to speak, they suit what is going on with M83 stylistically. So I get that. And what I really love about this guy is his veneration for the past, especially 70s, 80s, and even the 90s. Hurry Up We're Dreaming, inspired by Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. But you even look at a record like Junk, that was inspired by TV shows like Punky Brewster and Who's the Boss. So it's really cool the way that Anthony draws on these different art forms from pop culture and uses them as his muse. What I'm gonna argue with this record though right now is that music scene is so oversaturated with electronic music and synth music, and especially with music driven by 80s nostalgia. Now, I'll be the first to say that I love it. I am a big fan of it. But I know a lot of people that are just kind of blue in the face with it at this point. I think, Kate Bush blowing up with Stranger Things, and there's just all these things that, the 80s have become just ubiquitous. It's just everywhere now. And I think that with an outfit like M83 and with this project, it's something where, fans of the band, I think, are going to like this project, especially early fans of the band. I think that you're going to dig the mellow ambiance of this thing. The thing about, Hurry Up We're Dreaming, an album like that, is that you get more structure in those compositions. So the songs on Fantasy are definitely a lot more loose. But I'd argue that there's moments where, I struggle with that, where, I'm all about listening to an artist develop a composition and open it up. But I feel like there's a lot of these songs that just take too long to get to the point oftentimes, and especially in the intro. I mean, Water Deep and Ocean's Niagara, they're cool, especially the way that they come together. But for the overall feel of this record and the way that it builds into the tracks that follow, it just feels like it takes too long to get there. It's just taking too long to set things up. But I do love the man's veneration for the 80s. I listen to this thing and I hear bands like Duran Duran. I hear Tears for Fears. More than anything, what I'm really loving about this record is the guitar exchange and the interplay between the synths and the guitar. And it really makes me think of a band like Flock of Seagulls. And I think of Paul Reynolds on guitar especially, and that tone that he developed for that band. That's a band that gets ragged on so much, and I think it's unfair. There's definitely an element of cheese to what they were doing, but I think artistically, and when you think about the influence, it might be subconscious, or it might be, flat out obvious that, some artists are just saying that they're inspired by these cats. But there's a big feel of their sound driving this record, and I feel a lot of music, and I think that, despite despite the cheese factor, it's great that they never let them, they never let that eat them up, and that they're still out there touring, doing their thing, and whatever iteration it might be. But Flock of Seagulls still around, still doing their thing for a good reason. So I dig that element of this record. I like that guitar tone. I like that interplay that's happening. But I'd argue that with 13 songs, it's a sprawling hour and 6 minutes, and I think that, like I said, unless you're really a big fan of this band and this is exactly the type of electronic project that you're looking for, I think that there's just so much out there that I can't help but just kind of take a pass on it, because I'm having I'm having a preference for other records right now over this. Having listened to multiple records, reviewing them for the channel, listening to all those records multiple times as well. This is a record that's really good, and fans of the band are gonna dig it. But I'm probably just gonna keep streaming this thing. I don't think it's going to make it into the shelf. But what I will say is that it starts off with Waterdeep. It's got this simple acoustic riff, these light electric washes that work in, and the build that fills in is nice. I like the string arrangements here that work in. It's a cool song, but it just, given what it's leading into for the next 75 minutes. It's crazy too when you think about an album like Hurry Up We're Dreaming, which has a similar runtime, but so many more songs. Kind of speaks to the way that these things maybe meander a little bit. Like I said, I like that journey with the composition, but sometimes things can, sometimes you need to wrap it up. It's that Chappelle it's that Chappelle button. Yo, G, wrap it up. Water Deep leads seamlessly into Ocean's Niagara. I like that production element, pulsating synth, mid-tempo beat. The drum building on this track is pretty cool as well. You get these oceanic guitars, and that's where I'm really, you get this ethereal shoegaze feel, and that flock of seagulls element there with that guitar tone is I couldn't help but hear it. Amnesia is your third track, sci-fi synths. You get this twinkly electric element, cool rolling riff, and then it goes to work. And this is where the record kind of it starts to pick up that pace, and you get more of that, I guess, more of that element that people became familiar with back in 2011 with this band. That structure and that punch that goes along with that journey and with that kind of spacey sci-fi ambience as well. There's that balance there that this record is just lacking, I think. Us and the Rest is your fourth track. So you got the symphonic intro, you got these light washes, vocals really pretty over the synths. They surge and usher in this delicate minimal track. It's transitions into this mellow ballad, and then the coda gets big. It's a pretty interesting song, and I dug it. Earth to Sea, your fifth track, mid-tempo, 80s new wave groove, big old jam. And this thing, it's a great track, but maybe another example of something that could have been trimmed a little bit. Radar Far Gone, your sixth track, ethereal acoustic and piano track, very peaceful. I like where this song comes at it in the record, and the turn that it took. This is a song that struck me and that I really enjoyed. Deceiver is your seventh track, rolls off and builds on the light washes that build off of your previous track there. And I like the way that the beat hits about 2.5 minutes in. This thing mostly instrumental. A lot of this stuff really. I'll argue that not Anthony's like best lyrical performance either. I don't know. It's weird. There's this nostalgia that he's always captured with like simple one-line punches, and you're not getting the quality of those lines and of that aesthetic that I guess that he's laid down so well over the years, which is kind of unfortunate on this record. Fantasy, your title track, is your eighth song, choir-like vocal element, organ electronics. And then this thing just hits with like this disco funk flavor. It's a really fun track. One of the ones that I enjoyed the most. And I love the little flute that floats in and out on this thing. It's really a fun element to that song. Very playful, nicely done. Laura is your ninth song, shoegazy ballad. You get these bright synths that shift into this mellow undulation, this gentle beat. Chorus hits bright. It's a pretty dynamic track. Leads into your 10th song, Sunny Boy. You got this 80s pop rock feel on this song. Big drums, subdued production in that drumming. Bright synths hit. It's got this upbeat dance groove that hits after about a minute 45. Another nice track there. Cool Nuit featuring Kayla is your 11th track. Got this classic pop orchestration and this pretty French vocal. I think this is probably my favorite track for this reason. I love Kayla's vocal performance on this. And then you get this electro pop element that hits after like 3 minutes. It's got pop, bossa nova. Honestly, it's very ABBA-esque is what I felt. Sunny Boy Part 2 is basically, you have this penultimate track that's 2 minutes of ambience, and then it leads into Dismemberment Bureau, which is a really brutal title for a song, but this sick sci-fi synth that I guess matches the brutality of the title. You get this mellow beat that borders on meandering when it just sort of drifts along in this track. These sci-fi synths and textures build into this crescendo that leads to the outro of this record. It's a cool project. I think it's worth checking out, but ultimately for all of its strengths, I think that these weaknesses, the long runtime, it feels exhausting at times. And again, the oversaturation of 80s music right now. There's other projects that I've gotten into that, when I'm throwing on a record, I feel they're just more concise in giving me what I want. So if this record is giving you what I want, I'm stoked to hear that. I'm happy to hear that. This is a good band. I've always really dug Anthony and his style, but I'm going to give it a vinyl pass. Hope you find this review helpful. Please like this video and share it once more. And stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We appreciate you tuning in to the Beat Sessions. We'll see you next time.